Okay, so I decided to kind of carry on my 600i kind of discussion. I don't really know why. It seems to have endeared to me the idea of the 600i Touring and the 600i Explorer edition, and then by extension, the 600i Executive. Um, what exactly the 600i is, and why is it so poor at its jobs aside from the weapons layouts, the upgraded shields that just got buffed, its reasonable maneuverability for its ship class, and it's in the Explorer model, the ability to carry vehicles. Really exciting ship though, when you think about all the other things it has, such as scanning arrays on the Explorer or on the Touring, being able to do VIP transport content. So just stick around. I promise this isn't just a beatdown on the 600i. If you go in the forums, Spectrum, and you go into the forum side of things, you would find underneath everything else, well, towards the bottom anyway, you will find a pretty interesting setup where each company has its own uh, little division in here, its own set of forums. And then in those, you can sort by ship. So if you want to, say, talk about the Endeavor, you can go to MISC and you can literally click the Endeavor and you'll only see stuff about the Endeavor. Well, what I did was I just went into the 600i section, which does all three ships like we talked about, the 600i Explorer, the 600i Touring, and the 600i Executive is all combined into this section. And all you're seeing is only stuff about the 600i, or at least in particular, what players have flagged as the 600i. Remember, anybody could put anything in here, and if it's not 600i related, it might still have the flag. But I tried to keep the relevant ones in, and I sorted by new. And I just went through this little microcosm of this area. And these ship discussion areas don't really have a lot of attention. They don't get a lot of traffic. I mean, take a look at the views. You know, you got like 230 views on something posted 2 days ago, where you might have, or 309 on a very hot topic about the size 3 shields. I think there's a couple threads about the size 3 shields, to be fair, but 300 views, 300 views, 300 views. That's not a lot considering it's on Spectrum. Whereas you go into General or you go into Concierge or Subscriber, you might see 1,000 views on something if it's super popular, like a big topic like this. So it's more of the dedicated folks who care enough to go into their ship. They are that excited, that adamant about it, to go in and discuss and try to share with other people that have a passion for that ship, just that specific ship or that specific series of ships. What can be fixed, what they like, what they don't like, experiences they had around the ships. And these are some of I kind of try to stick with stuff that's been new within the last month that fits a category, except for one really good idea that's a little older. So I'm going to just share with what I found that was interesting to me. And some of these names you'll probably recognize. This is somebody who's been in the community for a very long time, Captain Fizzybeard. And confession time. A lot of people I just recognize right here. I recognize their background. But he ain't no civilian. I know that much. And you know what? Just for the heck of it, once in a while, I like proving this. See right here? 1.8 thousand post, 3.6 thousand karma. And he has always had just the civilian moniker, at least as far as I remember. That's pretty awesome that he's that humble. Just nice little nod there. But so his post is talking about trying to combine a few different topics of how to fix the 600i's. And I thought his post was a nice way to start and kind of set the tone for this video. So he talks about doing certain changes to the layout that would allow to make use of empty, unused space. And he's talking about the cargo grid areas. And I would honestly, mention this right now. There's a lot of ships that have smaller cargo area than what you would expect they could possibly put there. And sometimes that's on purpose, and sometimes that's because that's the old style of doing things. And a lot of ships, the cargo lift area is the maximum cargo area because there's not a practical way to get all this cargo out except by hand until we had tractor beams. We're just starting to get tractor beams in 3.14. And with the tractor beam tech finally coming in and down the line having NPCs that will load and unload your ship for you, or players that can do it in a group, you have tractor beams and just bam, 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 and knock it out, it's no big deal. But when this ship was first rolled out, any ship was rolled out, the difficulty to get cargo in and out of the ship was quite a challenge. So when he's talking about having the area arbitrarily small amount as though it's on only purpose for being so as to limit the vehicle that can ride here. I would request this be changed, expand it so the entire cargo bay lowers, relocate the lift pylons to the far outside edges of the now expanded lift, and get rid of the vertical cargo grids and move all cargo to sit directly onto the lift. Now, the reason I bring up that sometimes the cargo is arbitrarily limited, and yes, the vehicle size is arbitrarily limited in some cases. He is correct. Also, my thought here is if they don't want to make the lift bigger because of the vehicle sizing to stop like a Nova tank or a ballista being loaded into the 600i, then you could turn around and have these areas have cargo grid. We have already seen ships that have cargo grid that is not part of a ship that has of an area of the ship that has a lift, and it's literally just loaded in. The Taurus is one of the is a brand new example of a ship that's being released with a small auxiliary cargo area that's most likely a smuggler's hold for scanning reasons, but has absolutely no method of dropping its cargo that we know of without going directly into the main hold and then dropping it. So those 6 SCU, for example, of that back area of the auxiliary storage for SCU, you're going to have to get creative. And most important, it will not be on the main lift, which would be the most convenient way to get stuff on and off the ship. On the much larger scale and on an older design that's still coming out, the Kraken has a cargo lift. It also has a huge gantry running the ship, and it has running its cargo hold, and it also has a cargo train, a trolley that can go back and forth, like with missiles or specific parts to fix a Buccaneer or something like that in one of its hangars or up top. And it is designed to resupply any vessel that's on top of it, that's appropriately docked, as landed on its pads or sitting inside its hangars. And that's something that they're going to have to deal with, is that you're going to have a lot of SCU cargo on ships that is not easily accessible via some lift or some other mechanism to get it easily on and off the ship. You will have to maybe load it onto that mechanism over and over again. I believe the 600i, even if it had the smaller lift size, you could make use of that negative space and literally just add in cargo and keep one path. So you would have one path around the sides. And the fact that he's made this got us talking about this topic and really thinking about what are the possibilities. Another possibility, you could put one dead center, but then the lift, if it's dropped, obviously you can't get through. So, but this is kind of fun. Here he moves on to one of the things that really gets me going as well, the crew beds. So next are the crew quarters. I like them as is. Just please add privacy screens with a door into each room. And he says the words, each room, which they don't have right now. If you recall the video from earlier tonight, I spoke about how I really wish that these had rooms split up. And that's literally, he's correct. Adding partitions of some sort would be the way to go, and that's what I said in my video as well. I didn't see any of these forums, by the way, when I made this video. That kind of piqued my interest and got me interested in talking about this. But the deal is, when you come out of the main areas and you're going into the crew areas, this would be the crew areas, because it says escape rooms. So you're coming through to the pathway. You just walk into one open room with 4 beds, and it has like amenities for each person, but they can all see each other, and it's kind of just really awkward. By adding partitions and then maybe having like coat hooks or something, and maybe even a little gun rack or tool rack, I guess, would be better suited for crew quarters. You could add in little things in there, and then all of a sudden you've got many rooms, and you just walk right through the center. The escape pods and the restrooms are over here, the co-ed restrooms. So I would say that that's something that can be changed in some cases. With the partitions, that's an example of something that can be changed easily. Not all cases of changing are easy, and that's this topic coming up. The top deck. So he's picking on the bridge, which is the one with all that free space. Um, he talks about how the entire crew is in one spot, and that's just for social reasons and to make it look cool. And he's comparing it to the Star Trek bridge that would be better suited in that way. Relocate the remote turrets to the scanning station seats. Then make the front two seats a pilot and co-pilot pair, with the center seat being the captain's chair. Very interesting. Currently, the captain's chair is raised above the pilot seat is raised above the other two seats. And you can see that here, where there's a seat in the front, and then a raised seat. You can't really tell from this specific thing, but you have to get in this seat to fly the ship. And one of the nice things about being raised is that you can see better. You have a better angle. You can look directly down a little bit more in the glass, and it's the same effect as the Cutlass. When you get raised up, you have a better visibility. So I'm got mixed feelings about moving the pilot seat. But if the pilot seat was put into the throne of the commander underlings, I think the captain's chair is far more origin file than a center pilot mount on a pilot's chair. I don't see Origin as the underlings or something. I know it's supposed to be preppy and rich and whatnot, but I think that's a little strong wording. But hey, I don't know. I would say that if they were going to move the pilot seat, putting the pilot up front where he or she can see outside that window easily makes a lot of sense. You might have to cut the glass a little differently if this is not raised and these are, or none of them are raised. But we'll see. I do like the idea of having the scanning stations inside the cockpit, which is pretty cool. Even if they weren't to change the co-pilot seats or the pilot seat, adding those scanning stations behind the three main seats makes a lot of sense. In his idea, you have the two pilot and the co-pilot chairs, and then the scanning seats behind, which I think actually isn't terrible. Remember, the scanning seats can see a lot, and also I've got half a mind to suggest that the scanning seats should also double as remote gun seats. So if nobody's on the remote turret, then the scanning seat can also become a remote turret. If you're scanning for stuff, you're probably not shooting at anything that's 50 meters away. And if you're shooting at something 50 meters away, you probably don't need to be scanning. This is an example of multi-crew ships need to be willing to let people wear multiple hats in order to have them have a good time and want to keep playing with you and keep playing those roles. Not everybody wants to be a pilot, but everybody wants to have a good time and have something to do and feel like they're taking part. And having people just sitting in a scanning seat while there's a firefight happening would be extremely demoralizing. It's very frustrating to not be able to help contribute and pitch in, fight back, or in any case, it's the same deal with people that are mining and hauling and such. If you're sitting there in a combat pilot, you're a combat pilot sitting in a fighter, and you're just waiting for it to end. You're just watching a YouTube video or a Netflix clip or something while you're playing. I've always said that combat pilots or combat FPSers and things like that should have other things to do while they're escorting, while they're doing this and that. And it's something to flip the script. It's something to keep in mind on the flip side of that. So I do like some of these ideas. I do think it's cool to have remote turrets in the back, remote turret operation seats in the back. I don't know exactly. I think these should be dual role seats, and these should be dual role seats added here. So 2 more seats in the front, leave the 2 seats in the back, turn them towards the damn globe. And yeah, if the globe's staying. So when he talks about the globe taking up too much space, this is on the Explorer model specifically. The empty cartography deck, but the massive hologram of the area you're in is really cool. But the glass floor to look at the garage below. That's the area with the cargo and or a vehicle. I also wouldn't complain if that got turned into a tier 3 med bed station. I totally agree with that. Turning this area into a med bed would be really, really sweet. Especially even yeah, I think that's pretty dang cool. If it gave it the equivalent of a single Cutlass red bed, I don't, and then have a little bit of storage for medical supplies for that bed, I don't see why that would be a major issue. And I think that would actually be very helpful for an Explorer class ship. And yeah, I think it would give the Explorer a serious capability that it really needs. I do agree that it may not happen, and it may not be something that is possible, but hey, it's not worth just letting it down before you even get even somebody has to tell you no. I used to have coaches that would tell me play to the whistle, and I think that's the case here. And I do agree, the ship has its charm. It's a little wonky, and it's really cool, and it needs a lot of work, but it's worth fighting for. I think 600i is one of those ships that really should be fixed, and should the Origin team, if rumors are correct, bring out another class of ship between the 300 and the 600, then it really would be concerning to me if the 600i was not getting a proper pass, which it is, which is pretty cool. So the devs have already said that the 600i is getting its gold standard. And as Xerxes here mentions, they're going to take a long time, though, getting this gold standard pass outside of the 600i. Last video I mentioned that the 600i was getting worked on. I knew that for a fact, but I didn't know if it was officially a gold standard or not. And it appears that Xerxes is talking about it being a gold standard, and he's expressing his concern that it is taking over a month more longer-wise than they expected. Now, he only posted this just a couple days ago, so I think it'll be really interesting as long as they get it right. Having 15 weeks to continue working on this gold standard for the 600i, I think is more than enough time. I hope there's some updates in the process, and it's unfortunate that you see people here expressing that here's the hope. Yep, see, there's our friend again from the previous post. I totally agree with that. There was 600i will not be more expensive in 3 months' time, and 15 weeks is a good sign. I think for work, yes. So much for that Q4 release, true, and the 3.16.x release seems too much to expect. Whenever somebody says .x, by the way, if you don't know or already seen this before, the .x means past 3.16. So it'd be 3.16.1 or 3.16.2. So what Lucid's saying is this wouldn't be in the main load. This would be second, third. This would be something like 3.16 came out, and then the patches after 3.16 would actually be where it's coming out at. And Lucid's saying that's not. It may happen, it might not be, but it's reasonable to expect. And then Lucid's mentioning the concept work is 6 weeks, about 11 weeks for the actual changes. So I think the community is pretty positive on this. When I say the word community, I'm talking about the 600i subset of folks that is willing to come on a spectrum, and they're kind of touching base about this set of ships in this area, and they seem actually pretty positive, even with all the challenges that are being faced in the 600i. And I think that's actually pretty cool that they're able to keep a positive spin on this and keep that energy going, even with waiting even longer for the Golden Pass to happen and really see the strength of their ship. However, not everything's weak about the 600Is. So I Am Flux notes that he's very excited to see that difference between the Constellation series and the 600i. And the Connies will remain with one size 3 shield, while the 600i is not upgraded to have. I think I Am Flux meant is now upgraded to have two size 3 shields, because the 600i has two size 3 shields. That's why that's the way it is. Um, Now, the Connie is not rocking one size 3 shield. Um, so this is an example, by the way, of like when you have a subset of a subset here of a community, um, you may have some information that's going to be a little, out of date, or a little bit on the edges. And this is an example of that. And this community is very well knowledgeable about the 600i, but they probably aren't focused too much on the Connie. I'm sure there's many people that are across multiple ships, but in this case, this is an example of like a small community discussing the 600i, trying to compare it to another ship with outdated information can happen. Armova mentions that the downside of size 3 shields have a regen delay, so anything firing upon you, you will stop your shields from recharging. You'll need to wait without any damage for 10 seconds to start recharging again, which is damn near impossible when every ship is faster than 600i, Arctic Games mentions. I would say that I was quite pleased with the 600i speed for its size. I think its bulk is ridiculous. Like when you actually start turning, you really feel the weight of that ship, but it's pretty quick for its size. I'm not saying it's going to outrun much, but it ain't a slouch. Um, the size 3 shields will be buffed to a 5-second delay. That is true. So Coyote mentions that. So the regen delay they're talking about is your shields on the size 3s are ridiculously big buffer on those shields compared to size 2s. Right now the Connie has two size 2 shields, and it's kind of in an interesting little spot. Connie has a lot of weaponry, decent shields, just got a whole hit point bonus on all sorts of pieces of it. And when armor comes in, it's going to be sitting okay. The 600i, on the other hand, is relying heavily on its shields. It has two size 3 shields it's relying on. They're huge. That means it has a lot of buffer, but it also suffers from the low regen. Now, as Coyote mentions, the size 3s are being buffed to having a 5-second delay. Lucid is talking about how it might take longer to get off target from a faster vessel for even 5 seconds. And I disagree with that. 5 seconds is a really it's a short time, even in combat where things feel longer. Being able to disengage by, say, throwing a missile at a target or shooting at a target and actually causing some damage of any kind might force them to. Also, taking evasive actions, even though the thing is lumbers, it's not moving at 1 meter a second, and it's shooting, and it's defending itself, and it's spinning to keep faces on its target that are strong. I mean the shield faces. It has to move the shield faces so it doesn't have a weak side facing the enemy, and 5 seconds is not too long, especially against a smaller target that doesn't have a lot of ammunition. There is a lot of nerfs to ammunition counts, and energy weapons have to recharge their ammo. So you will see more and more ships that will be forced to kind of engage and then disengage to recharge, and then engage and then disengage. And once a ship starts losing its missiles, or its torps, in the rare case it has torps on the smaller ships, you're going to see a difference. Also, they're size 3 shields, so very small weaponry is going to have a hard time doing much, if anything, to these shields once it's finally iterated the way the developers have their vision for the game. So size 3 is large class shields, and you'll need weapons designed to take on large class and keep those shields down. They've already confirmed like the high DPS smaller weapons have extraordinarily short range and small ammo counts. And the energy weapons that used to be a great way to handle these larger ships just keep pounding and pounding because they have no ammo count, now have a capacitor need. So you're going to keep throwing more and more power to your capacitor to keep those energy weapons up to start chewing on these dual size 3 shields. And guess what? You're not going to have the speed to keep up with that 600i, or you'll get blasted out of the sky by the 600i because you're going to either lose shields or propulsion. You're going to have to pick one. And oh, by the way, the 600i is chucking 18 size 3 missiles at you. That's nothing to sneeze at. If you pulse those missiles, you're constantly forcing to use your countermeasures. And the smaller the ship, the less countermeasures you carry. So these are all things to think about here. I feel that a lot of people look at the paper stats or what their experience is before 3.14, and they're not really thinking about the whole picture as this is getting balanced. CIG has said time and time and time again for multiple pillars, community dev leads. Sorry, I didn't mean to seem like I'm picking on one person. I'm not picking on Lucid. It's just a mindset that a lot of us have. I catch myself all the time into this viewpoint of, oh, the ship has this many hit points and this ship can do this much damage per second or this much alpha damage. Therefore, the ship with the high DPS or alpha wins. And it's like, well, that's not the whole picture, especially when you think about CIG is setting up the game to win for the larger ship. At the very least, it's going to take a lot of friends. And if the smaller ship is bringing enough friends to take down that 600i, well, then the 600i better bring friends too. It has no right to complain about that if it's literally being set up to lose. But when it comes to a 1v1 or a 2v1 against small ships versus 600i, the 600i will have the upper hand in the sense of you won't be able to destroy it with the small ships. So, I mean, they can probably pester it enough, maybe even hold it down if they have EMPs or quantum jamming tech, so their friends can come to help kill it or disable it or steal its cargo, and then so they can get that bounty and then they leave. But I would say that don't count the 600i out or any other ship in that category when you look at the paper stats. Okay, so the 600i now has size 3 shields. You are welcome. I like this one because Burb here just made me laugh a lot. It's just I know I'm not laughing right now, but this is the second time I've seen it. I also liked the first post on this. So he mentions about how he posted and about how he said it really needs it. He's trying to take credit for the entire process. I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on that. I think it's really cool if that's the case, or even if this had some input and that positivity of suggesting something that it really needs, arguing for it, and then seeing it come through, and then having your victory lap inside the 600i little subcategory here. And but Lord Pitus here basically brought everybody back down to earth by saying, that's nice, but for a true expedition ship, it needs a medical bay, science area, 3D printer / assembler, repair drones, ability to launch drones, armory, docking. It actually has an armory. I don't know why he said that. Docking collar, cleaned up kitchen. It'll definitely have a docking collar, proper docking collar in the golden pass. Cleaned up kitchen / downtime area. I think there's some small changes to that area that need to be done, particularly the seating and everything. But I feel like that's just a matter of ripping out those weird couches and just putting in the right thing, getting rid of that glass thing underneath where the bartender stands. The TV area. The TV area just feels really weird. But I feel like all of those things can be done within the space given, within the module style and everything else that's in the game, and lighting styles that are in the game already. I don't see it as that big of a task. Cleaned up cargo area to fit rovers only, no snub required, but added would be bonus. I don't know what he means by that. I think he just means extra cargo area. Price increase. I don't know why you'd ever ask for a price increase. And this is still a rumor. I don't know what he's talking about for that price point, but I don't know why in the world he'd bring up that. But Yeah. But yeah, I think if you added some cargo grid on the one side, I think it would add some changes to this area. It's not a perfect fit. It's more of a band-aid fit, but not a band-aid. That's a bad example. It would be like coming up with something that's not a perfect solution, but it's an all right solution. So I think this is a little much, all of this, but I did think it was interesting how, a victory lap turned into an entire discussion about science labs, medical storage rooms, and all these other fun things. I think what he's really looking for is complete and utter changes to the ship that we're never going to see. Some of it we will. I think some of it we will. Fancy that talks about having that gold standard approach, and that we need features that we desperately need for the ship. But honestly, CIG, we could completely botch the gold standard rework. I'd be happy if the belly window in the touring was actually big enough to see anything out of. I mentioned this in my video that just posted tonight. Um, that window is terrible. It does not fit its needs at all. It needs to be way bigger, and that would be just as simple as that. Literally, like you're walking on the window, and that would be something really interesting. And yes, they would have to redesign the seats around the window to make sense for what you're seeing. Maybe even put them on an angle so you're pointing slightly downwards towards the window a little bit. And yes, I know that sounds complicated, but you have to get creative, or move the window around, figure something out. Right now, it's not a good idea. I can remember, I was much younger. There was a place called the 94th Aero Squadron, and it was next to a small airport nearby. And you were able to go into this restaurant. It was a restaurant, and it had, like these tables to eat at, and the tables were staggered. So there was 3 layers to the tables, but all of them could view the runways of the little airport, and it had headsets at each table. So some of them even worked. But as a kid, I remember wanting to be sitting at the tables that had the proper working headsets. So you'd have to specify that with the waitress, like, "Oh, I really want to wear a headset." And being able to listen to the pilots talking with the tower about when they're leaving, coming back, and whatever, and seeing the little jets and the little prop planes taking off was an incredible experience. And the entire eating area, I can't speak for the bar. It did have a bar too. I can't speak for that. I never was in there. But the entire eating area was designed to draw your attention to this one large window, or it might have been like 3 large windows along there. But the entire place was clearly set up so you could see everything that's going on the runways. And almost every seat in the whole place was angled in such a way that you could see what was going on without having to crane your neck. And it was really cool to be there at sunset, because you'd see the sun setting and you'd see the planes coming in, and they'd have all their cool lights on, of course. And at night, the lights are really bright, and it was really a neat experience coming in during those sunsets and that kind of thing. And having a nice meal. I don't think I only managed to get to go there maybe, I don't know, 6 times in my whole life before it went out of business. But those few times I got to go were very exciting. And because I only went once in a while, it was even more exciting. It was really special occasions. So I would say that like the 600i is something that means that much to me when it comes to the 600i. I would say the executive and the 600i touring could really benefit from having that window done right. Like, make that area down there like even better than the Phoenix's experience with its windows on the top, the sides. Make this window in the bottom where the focal point of the entire room down there, and make it feel like a special occasion when people go there. And maybe they'll be going there to check out something really exciting, like the eclipse of a star, or an event, like if somebody's having, maybe an in-game wedding or something. I don't know, some type of RP type of event. We make it very exciting and different. And even that would give the 600i some unique experiences, because the 890 jump is right now, like, everybody, if you speak to most of the community, oh, you want something fancy, don't get the 600i touring, buy that 890 jump. And I've always advocated for buying something like that in game, unless you have just a lot of money in credit or something. But buying something like that in game would be something really worth it, because you're not going to lose it all the time. Like having the most amazing LTI insurance on an 890 would be really, or 10-year insurance would be really cool, but it's not like you're going to be fighting with it constantly. You could probably even let it sit in a hangar somewhere and let it have it like the cheapest insurance, and just let it sit there. Like what are you going to do? Like that's one thing I've actually talked about with the workmates, is using, when the persistent hangars come in, using an 890 jump as a org hangout once corporate hangars come in. Org hangars come in much down the line. That is something they're going to do, though. So once they nail player persistent hangars, eventually there will be org persistent hangars. And I can see a lot of orgs doing the same trick I'm talking about. Buying an in-game 890, or having a player that already has one, if you're blessed enough to have somebody like that in the org, and talking them into letting it be stored in the org hangar. Like, look, when you're going to use it, but we know you're not going to use it that often. The fuel cost alone is going to be insane. So park that puppy in an org hangar, and then all of a sudden you've got like the coolest hangout in all the land. And it's got a restaurant, a bar, a spa, VIP rooms to crash in if you have visitors, or if you have you have a whole board meeting room. It's an incredible ship. And that's not even talking about its pocket carrier concept and org training for carrier ops, but down the line. Heck, right now too. But the 600i, to me, especially the executive and the touring model, would really be well suited to be the luxury models that are meant for observing and enjoying an experience that is external to the ship. I think that area should be the focal point of all efforts of the ship, that area. And I don't even think that spiral, I said in the last video, the spiral staircase should stay, only if it's transparent. Because I take back what I said. I get rid of that curve, get rid of the circle where the little plants are growing, tree, aquarium, any of that stuff. Get rid of all that, and have it so that upper floor can also see into that window. Like, I would go all in on that design, where the entire ship feels like it's gravitating towards that, whatever you frame the ship to view from below, into the ship from below. Just a thought. I don't know what else to say about it. I would even add a camera in that room, and literally, like, where the bar is in the back has a big screen on it that just is focused on whatever is in that room, into that window, or directly through that window, like as if you're looking through it. So everybody in the entire ship is linked to whatever that experience is in that window. Yes, I'm going there. I'm going all hog on this. Hog wild on this concept. But yeah, fancy that. You got me going. I totally agree. Okay, Captain Frizzybeard again. What is the 600i? Is it an exploration vessel? Or so they have said. But what is sort of exploration vessel? What does one explore with it? How does one explore with it? It is compared often with such ships as the Carrack and the Aquila. Such crass comparisons made me shudder in disgust. Such a plebeian thought that the owner of so a majestic vessel should lower themselves to a shallow travesty of the word exploration, as to be some sort of two travels in a carrack. The carrack is the kind of crude vessel that would be used by such explorers as Christopher Columbus, corporate whores who defile the words like discovery by selling it to the highest bidder. A man who flies a carrack must sell what he earns to make a profit. He either must prostitute himself to investors or sell what he finds in common marketplace, defacing the majesty of exploration with the flippancy of a man who peddles knickknacks at an R&R. No, the 600i is not an explorer in that sense, and she is proud of her continuous dismissal of her detractors, as if such a praise as a real exploration ship truly meant anything to them more than the ability to violently ravage her discoveries. No, the 600i is the exploration vessel for the citizen who loves exploration for its own sake. It is a thing of beauty for beauty's own sake. Like its calling, it is pure. It is a vessel for the citizen who wishes to discover the beautiful and gaze upon it, feasting on the beauty and letting it speak to their soul. It is not a ship for those who wish to rip what they discover to pieces and sell for cruel profit. What is it used for its drones? Sharp fingers do not but tear at the flesh of worlds. What use has it for medical facilities when her owner has no intention of provoking nature to defend itself with violence? What use has it for carrying means of dropping littered looking camps or hauling away whose viciously beaten out of chunks of planets hauling away whose viciously bitten out chunks of a planet's flesh? All that an explorer, a true explorer seeking wonder and amazement needs are his eyes and ears. That is all a true exploration vessel should need. Look, don't touch. A motto many were taught, but immense immediately forgot when they grew beyond the reach of those who knew better. She is a ship that sees and hears, but does not dig ruts in vistas or steal bodies from tombs, nor caves that flesh of worlds for the sake of selling valuable minerals? The 600i is a ship which can settle on a vista, watching a sunrise from an untouched and unsullied valley and gaze upon it without being a splotch on its surface. It is a white gem set upon the green and purple fields of Microtech's temperate zone. Nice reference. It is a delicate cloud set gently upon Crusader's sky, rather than a gray and brown stain, as it is indicative of the most grotesque features of Philistine utilitarianism. It is itself a thing of beauty, which a lover of beauty might gaze upon something still more beautiful. It is a crescendo of songs of purple sunsets, pink oceans, and emerald nebulae. It is as the the poets who created her assert, a symphony in motion. That's an Origin quote right there. Symphony in motion. And they are the creators. He's not kidding. The basking ship. I agree with Rico Hard. I agree with him. The touring. Oh my god. The touring is nothing but a cheap hotel in space. An 890 jump is for those too poor to own an... Wait. An 890 jump for those too poor to own an 890 jump. The Exec Explorer, is a ship for those who wish to find beauty, a ship with purpose. Okay. This is what I talked about earlier. The 600i touring, and by extension, I believe the executive. I am in concierge. I don't have anywhere near that level of concierge, though. I have a lot of ships, but I'm not that. I haven't been anywhere near that level yet. Thank goodness. For those that you do, congrats to you. But I don't think I'm going to be there ever. Hopefully, for my own sake. But for my own sanity. But so those two vessels, the 600i touring and the 600i executive, have kind of a crisis here. And that is, even if the executive has the touring inside of it, it might even be an expedition. But I'm going to stick with what I'm saying. They have a problem of being compared to the 890 jump, and it's because they blatantly are. One of the strangest things is the amount of VIP space, like actual rooms they have, is actually pretty good for their size. The 890 jump does not gain much hotel space. The actual 890 jumps VIP rooms are bigger, but the number is not increasing compared to the 890 jump size. It really needs more space. It really could use a lot more of these rooms. But the economy folks keep coming back whenever this discussion comes up, and it's talk about game balance, game balance, game balance, which is a shame. I mean, you take a look at you take a look at some of the, even a Kraken privateer has tons more rooms because it has those 10 extra habs at the minimum. It might even have more once they realize they need to have part-time rooms for the security forces to go take their sleeping breaks and stuff. Because right now it's just 10 extras for the shopkeepers, and then you have at least 6 more just for the habs for the hangars. Sorry, the pads. I think it's 3 or 4 when they each one has 2 beds, and then you also have the crew rooms and the captain's quarters. It's a lot of beds, and just that ship alone. The Idris, the Jav, they're also examples of that. But I'm picking on the 890 Jump is not cheap, and it's almost in those categories, and it has nowhere near the level of beds that we're talking about with these other ships. Even if you count the crew quarters in the 890s, it's not that many beds. So the VIP aspect of it is really, I think, what hinders them. I've said before about the 890 is that some of the rooms, they should have normal rooms too, or middle tier rooms, and turn around and say, look, these aren't VIP rooms. This span of 6 additional rooms, these smaller rooms are meant for people that are traveling with the VIP or org mates or whatever, but like just kind of sneak those in different places, and they would be really interesting. I've also pointed this out before. If people turn around and say there's not enough space in different places, I pointed out that the 890 Jumps emergency escape pods are huge. They're absolutely huge. I've always felt that those type of size escape pods could be redesigned. I would love the ability to be able to say, look, I don't care if you can get on and off the ship. Just literally let me get a Crow's custom where I can have that escape pod renovated into a room for people to stay in, or a storeroom to put more food and resources or ammo or whatever type of ship it is. Have a little cargo grid in there, because those things are decently sized. And if you could jettison the thing and then it could be picked up by an MPOV, that would be even better. And once again, that's a roll of the dice. By not having escape pods, your people are gonna be pretty upset if you need them, but you're gonna have a far more dangerous experience. But that's a lot of space tied up by escape pods on the left and the right sides of the 890. But anyway, what I was getting at is the 890 should not be compared to the 600. I believe that the 600, especially the touring and any derivatives of it, if the executive is part of that group, should have that focus of that window on the bottom, and they should be the experienced ship to experience massive, exciting things that are happening with you and and your friends and org mates in a more intimate environment than the 890. That's less costly to run. It's more approachable to purchase as an org, and it is not really meant to be a one-person ship. But you could, in theory, roll it around and bring it over to an event. It would be more risky without turret people, but you could do it. And then it's not quite the 890 Jump, though. It doesn't cost as much. It doesn't need all these NPCs extra, to really run it okay. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I think an experienced ship would be really cool and give it some really interesting angle that anything else wouldn't do. They're talking about the automated stock. That needs blades to do that, just like any other ship in the game, and that would take up CPU. But the 600i should have a decent amount of CPU. So this was a really cool bit, making a joke out of, how it doesn't have certain things that make an Explorer an Explorer. It's very creative. That's why I brought it up. This is something that Thelgar here brought in, this mention of how big the 600i is compared to other ships of its class. And it's true. It's pretty dang big. But I would suggest that don't forget that the actual area that you spend time in is like this like oval here. It's like stops right there. You can't get past that back window. So it's like here. Actually, on the bottom floor, you might be able to get past that back window and go into the back. I think the restrooms are like there. But yeah. It's like there to there. That's basically most of the area to operate in. Whereas in a ship like this, if you were to draw an oval, first of all, you'd lose space up here, but then you'd gain so much because the belly of this thing is like this. And then this opens up to be a door. And this opens up to be a door. Huge doors. On the Percy, it doesn't really matter. It's a completely different kind of ship. I would compare these two only because they can haul and carry vehicles, if you're counting the Explorer versus like a C2 M2 or an M2. And also, this ship has some amenities, and this ship has some amenities that could be crossed. You can compare. Like the C2, for example, has a kitchen, whereas the M2 does not. It's going to get some type of kitchenette, but it's not quite anything. This has a huge kitchen and a bar and all that other stuff. This has a lot of beds. This has less beds, but this can have drop seats if it's the M2. These two I could actually sit down and compare, but at the end of the day, this is designed to drop Nova tanks and ballista on a battlefield or at your later on at planetary outposts. It can carry a lot of stuff, whereas this is more carrying people is what it's really good at. It's carrying a lot of people and a package that can defend itself pretty okay for what it is. Whereas the C2, especially without that chin gun, has there's not a lot of turrets. I've caught the heck for pointing this out a couple times now, but there's a single turret back here, and then the two fixed weapons in the Hercules do not turn. They're not very fast. They're good in atmo, but they're really, really bulky, and they're only going to get worse, especially the M2 when armor is actualized, and it becomes a lot heavier and sluggish because of that heavier armor. The Percy, I don't compare because it's literally it's floating with these guns. There's one gun here, there's one gun on the bottom. It's a gunboat. It's a literal, if you ever looked up the pictures of a monitor, like these old school, they put a battleship class gun or something a bit smaller than a battleship class gun on like these old weapon systems that are way past their time. Whenever you look at these, like here's a quintessential monitor class. Here's a British one. So whenever you look at a monitor, the ship handles terribly. It is not designed to handle that large gun. The gun slews very slowly, and everything about the ship is just built around bringing this gun to bear in places it really shouldn't be in some cases. A lot of times monitors were really well suited for river work because you could suddenly bring a battleship class gun that's designed to work in the Atlantic or the Pacific or something and put it into a fight in like up a river somewhere. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this is really impressive. Like we can really do some crazy things with these monitor classes that we can't do with normal ships. Later on, some countries used all sorts of crazy things. They used landing ships, heavy landing ships. A lot of times were in use for river monitors. In particular, because they were cheap, they were plentiful, they had stuff to work with, and they had utility. Utility. This is another example of a monitor right here. And this is like a river one. You can tell because of that low line on the water. And if it wasn't probably afloat very long. This gives it a low profile, but it also means that it sits very low in the water, so big waves will come up and get in there. Interesting point. A lot of turrets actually just sat via gravity. So a lot of them, if they unfortunately sunk, a lot of times the turret would be somewhere else because the gun would fall off when the ship flipped over under the water or went upside down. Anyway, these monitors are a good example. This is a better one for like if you want to think of something that can actually go in the ocean properly. And you can see right here where small boats would come up, and then that's their gangway to go up. Probably. I can't say for certain. Here's the radio comms, and there are the radio mast up here. There's a lot of cool stuff on this ship, but at the end of the day, it's a ship that has a ridiculously large gun for its class, and it's built to do its job very, very scarily effectively, and that is what we're dealing with the Percy. The Percy is a monitor. An ocean-going monitor is a fair example, but it's a monitor. And when we talk about monitors, they are their own little creature that is a subset of history. I think I'm not saying it'll never happen again, but they have limitations, and there's a reason that they're not used by everybody constantly. The Percy has a very interesting turret where it would take a long time to slew onto a target. Even anything that's reasonably agile, it's going to have a hard time hitting. But yes, if it actually does manage to slew in, it can hit it, and it will hurt hard. If something else is working alongside the Percy, I could definitely see it being very scarily effective. You know, if you had a small ship with it that was like acting as its interceptor, that would EMP the enemy down, and then when the enemy can't literally steer because of an EMP or something like that and disables it, then the Percy just blap blap and it takes like the small ships out. I could see that, by the way. So I'm not discounting the Percy completely. Also, it does have turrets. It has remote turrets. I think they're on the back somewhere along the back here. But I just wanted to point that out, that I don't really consider this the same. Although the Percy could probably take out either one of these, no problem. Or this one might try to run away. It might be able to run away from the Percy. We still obviously can't. This is in game. This is in game. This is not in game. So we don't really know how they're going to balance all these ships. But it'll be interesting to say the least. If once again, if the Percy has other ships working alongside it, helping it secure its game, and then it takes it out with its weaponry, I think that would be a heck of a combination. But then my response to that would be, why aren't these other ships have their own friends? And then how would that change the gameplay? So yeah, just thought to mention that. And the Starfarer is a literal refinery that moves, and that has all these tanks, storage tanks. Like it has just all the 2 rows of storage tanks back here, armored or lightly armored, depending on if it's the Starfarer or the Starfarer Gemini. And then inside of its actual ship is going to be a straight up refinery that the EU gameplay team confirmed can do ore, or it can do liquid fuel. So it is going to be able to refine fuel for liquid, and then store it, and then transfer it to other ships, so they can be refueled in flight. Or it'll be able to can be set up. It has to be set up for this with precursors and all sorts of different things, but it can literally refine ore, and that's an incredible thing to be able to have. The Starfarer is going to be a monster, and it does not haul anywhere near as much as these guys or this one, but it's going to be a heck of a ship. And it already has a nice little cargo hold in it that can actually carry a few wheeled vehicles. I'm not saying tanks, but I've even squeezed in 100i in that thing, and it actually did it. I can't confirm if it does that in 3.14 yet, but it's a very exciting ship. So I think the 600i, especially the Explorer, is more competitive with these right now. And the Touring shouldn't even be on this list, because it's not the same ship. Like, it's not meant to be compared to these. It's meant to be its own unique experiential ship and VIP transport ship, which none of these other ones can do, either of those things properly, unless you want to see a supernova from the deck of a big cannon. It might be kind of cool. I mean, you could shoot into it all day long if you wanted to. I don't think the supernova is going to care. But but anyway, just thought I'd mention that. It is interesting to point that out. Arctic Games is talking about if we made it even smaller, if we made it even bigger, would that help? Maybe that would help fix it. But I think that would actually change it a lot. They should just do the 890 jump original concept as the new 600i. That's actually a pretty crazy, interesting idea. And don't try to be a cruise liner. So yeah, not have a huge pool, not have a spa. I think that would kind of destroy the 600i in my view, like how I like it. I like the size of it. I just wish they'd fix the interior. But it's interesting to point out. And speaking of interiors, the 600i, Sewell points out, the 600i interior versus the Railin interior is that the Railin interior is more intuitive and homely than the 600i. Both are fairly large ships, Crew beds appear to be recessed for the privacy rather than in a big hall, speaking of the railing, and ship layout is logical, each level having a theme. Travel between levels by escalators, intuitive and elegant, although we remember it's not in game yet, it's just a concept. So we got to be careful about saying it's going to be more intuitive. It could be really a pain to operate these little panels and have to click a bunch of things just to be able to move the gravlev elevators. We don't have gravlev elevators yet. But it is true. It feels like it's going to be really good. It looks like it's going to be really good. So that's a fair point. Hoping Origin's luxury human ship designers take some cues from the aliens. And Lucid points out they're reworking the ship's interior. They've already had specifically called out for the need for private cabins. And this is true. This video's really got some good points in there. It's expected to bring out the 600i, the gold standard. So, as you saw there, an Invictus launch week that was posted. Lucid posted this on June 14th, but this was posted back on launch week, which has been a bit. We had a few discussion points there that were interesting. That it's going to end up becoming a larger rework than expected. You might see this pop up for a moment. And the other thing about that's really, I guess it's not a surprise. You know, we knew it was going to be a big jump. We knew it was going to be a major thing. And it's a reminder, I guess, as well, while I'm digging through this, that in these dang things, there's all sorts of crazy things. When you're on the Wayway website, if you go to development roadmap, you can see a lot of interesting things. And we're going to stick with deliverables. And then we're going to go down the list. And actually, it should be at the top, right? Or no, if it has origin in the name. It's probably down here. So here we go. So this is right now live as of July 18. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing two different teams being dedicated. This is the EU vehicle content team. These are the folks that had the interview that kind of sparked a lot of this. And then you also have the vehicle concept art team. When you saw that forum post on Spectrum talking about just a few moments ago, talking about how the concept art team is starting their work first, that's what you're seeing. They're going to be working through, at least what they're expected to work through is October into mid-November with their concepts. And meantime, the EU vehicle content team is going to roll in at the beginning of November and be able to take a look at some of the stuff concepts are already working on, and they'll probably work together asking questions or bringing up different topics, or hey, can you redesign this or that, and give us some more drawings on these concepts and really get this going. And then they're going to take the ball and run with it all the way through to mid-January. I think it's a good idea that they pushed it back 4 weeks, so they gave themselves extra time. If that's the case, see the 15 weeks right here. It's confirming what we've already heard on the Spectrum. Because if they complete this in 11 weeks or 12 weeks or something, then everybody's going to be cheering. They're going to love this, especially for the yearly sale. The annual sale, when it hits, it's going to be nice. I think that'll be cool. I doubt it's going to make it, but I think that by the end of the year would be a great target. And if they overshoot, they got themselves wiggle room here. So if they have to go work on something else, put out a fire on something else, all of a sudden that extra 4 weeks gives them that wiggle room to be able to push it out mid-January, and they're still on target for the gold standard finish. So that's kind of something here. Under promise, over deliver is something you hear a lot with tech companies, and this is a good example of that. And so we have the confirmation of what the timing is for the 600i rework. We can see what people are expecting, what ideas are here. And finally, I'm going to just leave you with an older idea that I just loved the minute I saw it. Cloudscape talking about the 600i elevator should provide top surface roof access for enhanced accessibility in space or accidental landings and nicer views / parties in hospitable environments. There's nothing above the elevator shaft anyway. This is an example of something that they could slam dunk on that gold pass and really, really bring this ship out into something nice. And literally it doesn't even need like a deck up there or some weird, thing. Make it like a traditional roof deck where it's just literally, it's a at your own risk type situation. You can go up the elevator, you can end up there. And I would say that there maybe needs to be like a special button. So one of the elevators goes up there, and in order to get to it, you have to be on the top floor of the inside of the ship, and you click one other button, and it's like the roof deck or something. And it says, warning outside of, it has like a little, in parentheses, like outside of ship or something like that. So if you bother to hit that button, you know what you're getting into. That's the only thing I'd add to this. And that's about it. Sun lotion and towels for tanning on a hard day of luxury. Good idea. I like it. Sun lotion and towels. And here's the Ford prefix line. If you're going to survive out there, you really better know what a towel is from a Hitchhiker's Guide. You can even mark out an area for helipad, as this thing's rumored to float in the oceans of the foreign resort worlds. That's a really cool idea, is to have like, an area that's designated for a helipad. Let me just flatten the surface of the top a little bit, right where that door is, I guess. Here's a guy who literally had a screen grab. Polar Silver had a screen grab of a location. Where is this? Yes, please. Doors could open like Origin Jump Work 600i video. Wow, that's really cool. To steal the time from Josh Coons, it's really baller. That would be truly amazing. I don't think they should really do all that if it's going to slow down the gold pass, but that would be really cool. Small patio that allow for EVA jumps, yeah. And one more thing they could add. I think it would also have an issue though of different. We just got done explaining that the whole focus of the ship could be to the bottom of the ship. Well, if all the action's on top of the ship for the patio, it would kind of like flip that on its head. I don't know how to fix that. I don't understand it. I don't know if that's even an issue. If that's like a problem. But having just the elevator be able to access the roof at the very least would be a really cool little benefit. As for the bottom of the ship, I could see that like protruding slightly, so it would be like a kind of like a glass bottom boat effect. So you can have like your little deck underneath, looking down into the abyss. And be seeing some beautiful things. But that's kind of where I'm at. I know that I didn't cover everybody's post on here. I tried to pick ones that really stuck out to me and really excited me, and sparked those discussion points that are really important. I would say that, like anything with these, remember that anybody can post anything, so be sure to double check anything if you're making a decision about purchasing a ship or in game or on the website. That's important. Also, I just sorted by 600s. You can definitely just come in here, Origin Jump Works, and you can literally just sit in here and go by these. I'll also mention that if you're in the 600 section and you go into a thread and then you back out of that thread, it will kick you out of that. Well, sorry, on some browsers, it will kick you out of that specific thing, and you'll notice like, why is there 890 jumps and 325A stuff? Well, that's why. Because sometimes it'll kick you out of that specific little notch. It depends on what your settings are for your browser. And I'm going to take this moment at the end of the video, because that's where we're going, to thank you if you stuck around for this long. Be sure to remember that we have patch notes section for. I'm actually kind of spoiled. Usually, I had the zoom in a little bit to make it easier to read. Usually, I have it like this, and that means that the form that looks a little different to me. And then, like, just even zooming in changed my whole viewpoint. So let's see if. So the PTU patch watches are still up. And what I wanted to remind everybody is it's general. So Star System general, and then sorting by that tag again, you can see all the little things in here. The PTU for maneuverability, the PTU for patch watch. And I wanted to specifically go into this one because this is an example of like how I do my research for these shows. One of the things I forgot about was like the Connie got a buff for its shields. And it's sticking with these, but I believe it's bugging me. It either has 2 or 3 now. So it was really, really kind of bugging me a little bit. There it is. So the RSI Constellation has increased its shields from 2 size 2s to 1 size 3. See that? You see this stuff live? And it's pretty... It's a bittersweet thing because I was able to kind of fix that for this video. I'm glad the information got in there, but earlier when we were talking about the Connie versus the 600Is, I was talking about the Connie still being the mediums. That's my mindset I've had for years. Now seeing them with the size 3s for the large class shield, that is a decent buff, but it's also a weird nerf because the size 3 has a regen. And the actual speed of the shield regen is going to be lower than the size 2s. Size 2, normal regen to HP ratio around 4 times that of hit points of size 1s, bubble shields only. Size 3, quad faces or above, around 10 more times more hit points than size 2s. So while it has more hit points, it is not necessarily a shield that you really want because you have to manage those quad faces, and also you don't. I noticed they either got rid of it or it wasn't here at all. But the regen for the hit and the hit point ratio, particularly the regen, is not mentioned here unfortunately. But the regen should be slower than on the size 2s or definitely the size 1s that are smaller class shields. So interesting thoughts. Also, don't forget, right now, shield modules are all across the board like the same stats. When we start seeing those modules come back with the correct stats, so they'll be like slapping a military class A shield, especially a size 3 or size 2s and stuff, will make significant differences than overstock. So RSI Constellation having a single size 3 and then enjoying the hull and the armor of a Connie and the smaller size and the additional maneuverability and VTOL capabilities of a Connie may be enough of a tipping, and all the weaponry designed to take on smaller ships really well, may be enough of a tipping point to compare it to the 600i. But the 600i is a bigger ship. It's just plain and simple, is a much bigger ship. Those triple size 5s, guns, the 2 remote turrets, the tons and tons of missiles it has are size 3 versus the Connie that has a whole bunch of size 2s, and on most of them also has the size 1s across the fleet. It's an interesting trade-off that the Connie has. Don't forget though, the Connie's way cheaper and the Connie is a smaller ship. it is a true medium into large, whereas the 600i is without a doubt a large, just a large, and it's huge compared to it. But yes, the 600i got its much needed buff. The Connie got an interesting buff that gives it more buffer, but also keeps the shield facing tech, which it wouldn't have to worry about. But if it had the smaller size 2s, and it also has less of that juicy regen, and the recharge rate will likely be lower. We'll have to see how that turns out, though, once we start seeing proper modules of proper sizes and balancing is completed. But it's a good time to be it, and I would not consider ditching a 600i just because you have a Connie, or vice versa. They're two completely different creatures, and only the Phoenix even would be comparable because it's VIP transport versus VIP transport. And I really would, even though Phoenix is my daily driver and one of my favorite ships in the whole game, I still wouldn't compare that to a touring 600i, especially when it's fixed up after the Golden Pass in a few months. It's just, they're apples and oranges. Both of them are good. You could get yourself a Phoenix and then work your way towards a 600i touring, and then you have both in your stable to be able to run VIP missions of different classes and sizes. And then you obviously use either one of them for many other roles, because that's not the only thing either one can do. So that's just a thought. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, as always, feedback is always welcome. Like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Greatly appreciate it as well. And feedback, please. Especially when I'm doing these experimental videos and hyper-focused videos. Like, for example, the 600i. Are you a fan of it? Or is, quote, orange and bad? Hashtag orange and bad? Or are you in the camp of, I could care less either way. This type of ship is nice to have, or it's one of my org mates is cool about that stuff, but I am not, because it gives me an idea of what you want to see. It's not just me trying to drum up comments, it's also me trying to find out what you need. And I've always explained, you can reach out to me on the Discord privately, RedJay, hashtag 0001, and that means I get nothing, no kind of comments or any excitement from that or any clickbaity stuff. It's literally just, we can chat and talk about all sorts of different ships, different things about a Star Citizen. I have had tons of conversations, and some of the initial chats are very funny because I don't think people realize I'm just a normal person. I'll chat with you all day if you want. And also, we have a great group of folks, guys and gals, over on Orion Comms. So if you ever want to just play Star Citizen and many other games, we have a great group of people. Anybody's welcome. And I wish you all a wonderful day.